Welcome, race fans, to Pump the Brakes, the one, the only, the Cadillac of Formula One podcasts. I am your host, the Pit Lane Patriot. This week, Formula One heads to Spa-Francorchamps for the Belgian Grand Prix. We've got the entire preview for you, so let's just get right into it. So from one cathedral of speed to another, Silverstone is now behind us. Ferrari struck back, Mercedes left with emotion, Red Bull left with questions, McLaren left looking for answers, and the midfield got spicy. In Cadillac, well, okay, we're going to get to Cadillac a little later, but this week is Spa, the Belgian Grand Prix. And I'll say this right now, there are racetracks, and then there's Spa-Francorchamps. This is one of those places where Formula One feels bigger than Formula One. It feels older, it feels more dangerous, and it feels more alive. Spa is not just a circuit on the calendar. Spa is a test of nerve. It's long, it's fast, it's beautiful, it's weird, it's unpredictable. It sits in a forest like Formula One's haunted mansion. So you don't just race at Spa, you survive Spa, you earn Spa. It's a very respected track. It's the longest circuit on the Formula One calendar at just over 7 kilometers. 44 laps, over 300 kilometers. But because the lap is so long, every lap feels like a full story. You do not get a short, tight rhythm of Austria. You do not get a constant crowd pressure of Monaco. You do not get the modern stadium feel of some of the newer circuits. At Spa, the lap, it breathes. So you start the lap at La Source. It's a tight hairpin where the track can go wrong immediately. Then you drop downhill, car gets light, and you suddenly start staring at one of the most famous sequences in motorsport, Eau Rouge and Radlon. Left, right, uphill. That's the postcard. It's the corner that everybody talks about, Eau Rouge. And yes, modern Formula One cars can make things look easier than they are. Sometimes we hear people say, oh, Eau Rouge is flat now. Fine. Maybe in qualifying trim, in perfect conditions with the right car, with full trust, sure. But that phrase, with full trust, is everything when it comes to the 2026 Belgian Grand Prix. Because if the car is nervous, if the track is damp, if the wind shifts, if the balance is wrong, if your rear end starts talking to you at the wrong moment, Spa reminds you very quickly, this is not a video game. So Eau Rouge and Radlon corners are not famous because they look cool on a track map. They're famous because they ask the driver a question at a ridiculously high speed. Do you believe in this car? And at Spa, if the answer is no, you're already in trouble. After Eau Rouge, you come across the Kemmel Straight, one of the great slipstream runs in Formula One. It's where Spa starts playing chess. Like, do you trim the car out for straight speed, or do you carry more wing for sector 2? Do you protect yourself in corners? Do you make yourself more dangerous on a straight line? Spa punishes compromises. It tests it all. Run too much downforce, and you're sitting duck up the hill and down the Kemmel Straight. Run too little, and sector 2 starts eating you alive. The car slides, the tire work gets harder, and the driver starts losing confidence in the car. And that's what makes this so difficult of a lap. It's also what makes Spa great. It's not just fast, it's a setup argument. Every team walks into Spa trying to answer the same question. How brave are we willing to be? And then, just to make life harder, there's the weather. Spa weather is its own character. You can have rain on one part of the track and dry conditions on another. And because the lap is long, that's not a cute little detail. That can completely change the race. You can leave the pits thinking you are on the right tire strategy, and by the time you get to another sector, the track is telling you a totally different story. That's Spa. The circuit lies, the cloud moves, the grip changes, the radar becomes your enemy, and the race can flip in one lap. And when we preview the Belgian Grand Prix, we're not just asking who's the fastest car. What we're asking, who has the car, the driver, the pit wall, and the nerve to handle the weirdest weekend on the calendar. Because Spa does not always crown the cleanest team. Spa crowns the team that reacts fastest. Historically, this place is royalty. The original Spa layout was built in 1920 on public roads between towns in the Adrinas. It was this huge, wild, triangular-shaped monster that was like 15 kilometers long originally. It was part of Formula One's first ever championship season in 1950. Juan Manuel Fangio won it. Winners include Fangio, Senna, Schumacher, Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc. Pretty much all the greats leave their fingerprints here, and the drivers know it. Winning at some tracks gives you points. Winning at Spa gives you credibility. And that's sort of the tone going into this weekend. And the timing of this race is even bigger, because we're coming off of Silverstone, where Ferrari changed the emotional temperature of the season. Leclerc won. Hamilton finished in third. Ferrari put both cars on the podium. Suddenly, Ferrari are not just hanging around. They're becoming a real threat. Now, don't get me wrong. Mercedes is still leading both championships. Kimi Antonelli is still the star leading the Drivers' Championship. George Russell's right behind him in second. Mercedes still looks like the most complete team, but Silverstone definitely cracked that door open. And now we come to Spa. And this is where the championship can start to feel different.
It is time for the green flag to fly at Spa. Let's go racing at one of the great circuits on the planet.
So headline number one going into Belgium is simple. Can Ferrari keep this going? Because this is the question now. Was Silverstone a great weekend or was Silverstone the start of something? That's a very different conversation. Ferrari have won 2 of the last 3 races. Hamilton won in Spain. Leclerc won at Silverstone. Hamilton is still right there in the title picture. Leclerc is further back, but he has momentum now. And the team is closing the gap to Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship. And at Spa, Ferrari should be interesting. This track rewards efficiency. It rewards top speed. It rewards a car that can be fast in the straight line without becoming a disaster in the corners. If Ferrari bring upgrades and those upgrades work, this becomes a very serious weekend for them. And for Charles Leclerc specifically, Spa's a big opportunity because 1 win can change a headline. 2 wins can change a season. If Leclerc follows Silverstone with another big performance at Spa, then suddenly he's not just a driver who won a 1 chaotic race in Great Britain. Suddenly he's a Ferrari driver on a run. Suddenly the conversation around Ferrari becomes less about Hamilton carrying the story and more about Ferrari having legit weapons in both cars. And that matters because if Ferrari has 2 weapons and Mercedes has 2 weapons, then the championship fight gets very, very real very quickly, which is great for us fans. And then there's Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton at Spa in Ferrari red just sounds like correct, right? There are some circuits where that image feels strange, but Spa, Ferrari red through Eau Rouge, Ferrari red down the Kemmel Straight, Lewis Hamilton trying to hunt a win in the Adrenas, now that works. And after Silverstone, Hamilton does not need a moral victory. He needs a result that keeps him close. He's not some ceremonial legend just here to enjoy a Ferrari chapter. He is currently 3rd in the championship. He has already won a race in red, and he just stood on the podium at Silverstone. Hamilton is legitimately in this. So if Ferrari are fast at Spa, Lewis Hamilton becomes one of those major stories of the weekend. Headline number 2, Mercedes needs to turn speed into more control. Because, again, Mercedes are still the standard this year. They still lead the Drivers' Championship with Kimi Antonelli. George Russell is still in 2nd. They lead the Constructors' Championship. They've had pace everywhere. But Silverstone was a reminder that having the fastest car over a weekend does not guarantee a trophy. Antonelli won the sprint. Antonelli took pole. Antonelli looked like he was ready to make Silverstone his race. And then the car ruined his Sunday. That is painful. And it creates a weird tension going into Spa. Because on the one hand, Kimi Antonelli still feels confident. His pace was real. His Saturday was real. His season's real. He's leading the championship for a reason. But on the other hand, he just watched a potential massive weekend fall apart. And now he goes to Spa, a track where confidence matters, energy deployment matters, long lap execution matters, and weather might matter too. That's a lot to throw at a 19-year-old championship leader. But that's also why we're watching. Because every week, Antonelli gives us another test case. Can he handle this? Can he handle that? Can he handle pressure? Can he handle a teammate? Can he handle bad races? Can he handle losing points? Can he handle Ferrari closing in? And so far, he keeps answering that. But Spa is a different exam. At Spa, you can't fake confidence. You can't sort of trust the car. You can't drive scared. If Antonelli comes out and puts a Mercedes on the front row again, or wins, or even just beats Russell straight up after the Silverstone frustration, that's another major statement. But George Russell's not going away. George Russell's still my boy. I still got him winning this championship. George Russell has quietly, and sometimes not so quietly, made this into a fight. He won in Austria. He finished 2nd at Silverstone. He's cutting into Antonelli's lead, and now he goes to a track where experience matters. And this is where George Russell can apply pressure. Not by talking, not by trying to force a narrative, just by being there, session after session, qualifying lap after qualifying lap, stint after stint. And that's how teammate fights become uncomfortable because if Antonelli has one issue, then Russell's right there. If Antonelli has one messy qualifying, one bad corner, Russell's right there. And if Antonelli gets the wrong strategy, Russell's right there. And that's why Mercedes might have the best problem in Formula One. They have 2 drivers who can legitimately win. The danger is, if Ferrari keep gaining, Mercedes cannot afford to let the teammate battle cost them clean execution. Spa's going to test that.
The 2 contenders for the title! Side by side? Not anymore, they're not!
Headline number 3, Red Bull needs answers, not vibes. They need answers. Max Verstappen is the most uncomfortable major story going into Spa. I don't mean uncomfortable for us, I just mean like for Red Bull. At Austria, Verstappen ended up in the wall in qualifying. At Silverstone, Verstappen crashed out of the race and raised serious concern about the rear wing and the stability of the car and safety. Now he goes to Spa, a track where rear stability, trust, aero confidence, and straight line efficiency are everything. This is a rough place to bring doubt because Max Verstappen does not trust the rear of this car, and Spa's going to expose that. The track's too fast. The commitment zones are too serious. You can't baby through Spa and expect to fight Mercedes and Ferrari. This is a track where Red Bull have to show that Silverstone was not the beginning of a bigger technical problem. And then there's that whole off-track layer to this Red Bull story. Verstappen is not in the top 2 in the championship right now. There are rumors. There are performance clause stories. There are questions about his future. If he's not in the top 2 of that championship, he has a right to leave. There are whispers about what could happen if Red Bull cannot give him a car that he believes in. Now, I always say this with the driver market stuff. Formula One loves rumors. Sometimes they're real. Sometimes they're bargaining chips. Sometimes they're smoke. And sometimes there's smoke from a fire. So you never really know. But what we do know is this. Max Verstappen being frustrated is a story. Max Verstappen crashing in back-to-back weekends is a story. And Max Verstappen questioning his car is a story. And here's a twist. Isaac Hadjar is also becoming a story. Isaac Hadjar finished 5th in Silverstone. He's been much closer to Verstappen than people expected. Red Bull's second seat has historically been a nightmare for drivers. Even our very own Checo Perez struggled against Max. But Hadjar looks like he could actually be building something here. So Red Bull's weekend is fascinating in 2 directions. Can Verstappen get trust back? And can Hadjar keep proving that Red Bull might finally have a real second car answer? Both happen, then Red Bull can steady the ship and move up. If neither happen, noise and rumors get louder. Headline number 4, McLaren needs to rejoin the main event because right now McLaren is just in a strange place. It's not bad, like to be clear, it's not bad, it's not a disaster. Lando Norris is in 5th within the standings. Oscar Piastri is ridiculously talented. The car has pace. They're 3rd in the Constructors' Championship. None of that is bad. But after Silverstone, McLaren felt like they were watching the fight more from the sideline than actually like shaping it. Norris finished 4th at home, which is solid, good points, pretty respectable. But it's Lando Norris, the reigning world champion at his home Grand Prix. Respectable is not the dream. Respectable is not enough when Mercedes and Ferrari are taking the air completely out of the room. And Piastri finishing outside of the points at Silverstone kind of hurt. So McLaren's going to Spa and needing to remind everyone that they're not just another good team or just, in that top 4 conversation. Spa should be a track where McLaren can show something if the car is efficient. I have faith in McLaren going into Spa. They need straight line speed. They need high speed balance. They need a setup that does not destroy the tires. And they need both drivers to fight. Not one, but both, and they can definitely do it. As long as Norris and Piastri are both threatening, I could see McLaren regaining a little bit of authority in Spa. Headline number 5. So this is one of the nerdier but more like important stories going into Spa because it's about the regulations. Because we are in a new generation of 2026 Formula cars. And that means these cars are dealing with different energy deployment and different battery behavior. And Spa is going to stress test that in a very big way because the lap is so long and the straights are so demanding. So you can't just dump all your battery early and expect the rest of the lap to take care of itself. If you use too much energy from La Source through Eau Rouge, that first initial beginning part of the track, and onto the Camel Straight, then you'll probably go down that straight empty on your battery and have to slow down. If you are empty late, you're exposed. Car loses its punch, lap falls apart, and you become vulnerable like in the middle of the lap. So this is definitely an energy management track. So we're going to have the Formula One. The FIA is definitely going to be watching this race with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that their regulations are on point because the Spa will expose it if it's not. So when you're watching the race this weekend, don't just look at who's fast in Sector 1. Look at who has the energy at the end of the lap because the energy management's actually going to matter a lot in this race. And I have a feeling maybe 1 or 2 drivers are going to capitalize on being good with their energy and make their way up towards the front. Headline number 6. Weather could turn this whole weekend upside down. And yes, I know every Spa preview like ever mentions rain. It's legally required. But this year, it actually matters more because the 2026 cars have not had a ton of wet weather races so far. There's not been a lot of wet weather. If rain hits practice or qualify, we might learn a lot very quickly. And Spa, in mixed conditions, is chaotic. And like real chaos. Because one part of the circuit can be wet while another part is dry. It's a long circuit. So you can be brave in one sector and then terrified in another. Tire choice becomes a gamble. Pit wall becomes just as important as the driver. The outlap becomes dangerous. The inlap becomes strategic. And qualifying can turn into a session where being on track at the exact right minute matters more than having the fastest car. And that's what I meant when Spa can get weird. And a weird grid at Spa means a weird race. If qualifying gets messy, suddenly Mercedes might have one car completely out of pace. Ferrari might have a chance. Verstappen might come through traffic. And McLaren might actually show some consistency and stay up there. And midfield teams might smell some points. You never know. Weather is the great equalizer, but it's also the great exposer. Because in wet or mixed conditions, weak confidence shows up. Bad communication shows up. Slow decision-making shows up. Drivers who are guessing show up. And our last major headline going into the Belgian Grand Prix is this. The midfield fight is getting real, and I love it. Racing Bulls are coming off a huge Silverstone weekend. Liam Lawson was in 6th. Lindblad was in 7th. That's not nothing. That's a team showing that they can execute when a race opens up. Audi scored with Bortoleto. Alpine got both cars into the points. Haas just missed out. Aston Martin looked rough, and Williams had a difficult weekend. So the midfield going into Spa is not settled. It is moving, and that matters because Spa is on a track where midfield cars can look very different depending on setup philosophy. A car with a low drag might qualify better than expected. A car with good tire behavior might come alive in the race. A team that guesses right on weather can jump 5 places. A team that guesses wrong can disappear. And for Racing Bulls, Spa is about proving Silverstone was not just a one-weekend spike. Liam Lawson needs to keep building. And Lindblad, especially as the young driver, only rookie on the field, has a chance to keep stacking evidence. Every time Lindblad scores on a strong run, the conversation around him changes a little bit. And for Audi, Bortoleto scoring at Silverstone gives them something to build off of. Spa is another chance to show that they were not just hanging around the edges of points. For Alpine, double points at Silverstone were huge. But now they have to show whether that was a real step or just a chaotic race falling apart and going their way. For Haas, this is a chance to hit back after being close but not quite close enough. And for Aston Martin, honestly, this is starting to become a pressure weekend because they need something. They need performance. They need a sign of life because right now being behind or around the newest team and struggling to score is not where the organization expected to be. And Williams needs stability. Silverstone was rough. Spa can reward straight line speed, so if Williams has anything in that car, this place to show it. And that's why the midfield fight is so fun right now. Nobody's safe. Nobody's completely dead. Everybody's just enough hope to make the fight mean something. That's why the Belgian Grand Prix and Spa-Francorchamps feel so important this year. Because after Silverstone, we don't need a filler race. We need a truth serum. And Spa can be a truth serum. Are Ferrari really back? Is Mercedes still fully in control? Can Kimi Antonelli respond after a painful Sunday? Can Russell keep closing? Can Hamilton keep the Ferrari dream alive? Can Leclerc turn that one win into momentum? Can Verstappen start to gain some trust in Red Bull? Can Hadjar keep rising? Can McLaren stop drifting away from the front? And can the midfield keep throwing punches? These are all questions that we have going into Spa. But of course, the biggest question of all is what does all this mean for our team Cadillac? Okay, so Cadillac. For Cadillac, Spa's pretty simple. Silverstone was sort of a reset after that Austria disaster. So Spa's got to be proof. Because after Austria, Cadillac needed to stop the bleeding. That was the whole assignment. Finish the race, get both cars to the flag, get real data on the upgrade package, give both Pérez and Bottas a full Grand Prix of distance, and don't let Austria become the story of the season. And you know what? At Silverstone, they did just that. Pérez finished 15th, Bottas finished 17th, both cars completed the race. Cadillac called it a competitive double finish, and honestly, from where the team is right now, it's fair. It wasn't points, it wasn't a breakthrough, but it's a proper response after a rough weekend. But now comes Spa, and Spa is a different kind of test because Silverstone, the goal was being stable. Now at Spa, the goal is to learn whether that stability can travel to one of the hardest tracks on the calendar. It's a long lap, high speed, heavy commitment, big straights, big aero compromises. You need straight line speed, but you cannot completely throw away downforce because Sector 2 will punish you. And with these 2026 cars, energy deployment is going to matter a lot too. If you're out of battery in the wrong place, you're a sitting duck. So for Cadillac, this weekend is not just about finishing again. Okay, yes, obviously finish the race. That's still step one. But now we need to see signs that Silverstone data actually helped move the car forward. Remember, we're still working with a new upgrade package here. Can the team start the weekend cleaner than it did last weekend? Can Pérez and Bottas get more comfortable with this huge upgrade package? Can they avoid losing the weekend in qualifying? Can one of them push towards Q2 if conditions get weird? Because that's the next real goal, right? Cadillac can't keep living on the back row and expecting Sundays to save them. Pérez gives good racecraft. Bottas gives valuable technical feedback. But at some point, the team needs to start getting into better positions. Even if it's not Q3, even if it's not a point, just getting the car out of Q1 would be absolutely feel meaningful. And, Spa could create that opportunity. The weather could play a role. The lap's long. Setup choices are tricky. Some teams may guess wrong. And some cars may really struggle with that energy deployment thing. So there's definitely openings here. And our team Cadillac's just got to be ready to take one. And this is where our veteran lineup matters, because that's why you brought in guys like Sergio Pérez and Valtteri Bottas. Not because year one was going to be glamorous, not because they were going to magically drag a new team into the points every weekend. You brought them in because you were thinking about weekends like Spa. When the track is complicated and the conditions change, experience matters. Checo knows how to survive messy races. Bottas knows how to give engineers clean, useful feedback. That's what Cadillac needs right now. The team is still not in that midfield fight. And let's be honest, they're still chasing Haas, Alpine, Audi. We're not anywhere near there. And Racing Bulls especially just showed up really hard at Silverstone. 6th and 7th, which is a mountain for Cadillac to try to climb. But the good news is Silverstone gave Cadillac something to build from. Austria was damage. Silverstone was recovery. Spa needs to be confirmation. Confirmation that the car can finish again. Confirmation that the upgrades are actually giving engineers useful direction. Confirmation that Pérez and Bottas can keep moving the team forward. And maybe if the weather gets weird or if qualifying gets messed up, confirmation that Cadillac can start to sniff around the edge of Q2. That's my realistic target. One clean Friday, one car closer to Q2, obviously both cars finishing, no reliability issues, and no self-inflicted mistakes. If chaos opens the door, be close enough to walk through it. It's not a flashy goal, but again, year one's not always flashy. Sometimes progress is boring. Sometimes it's finishing 15th instead of retiring. And sometimes progress is having just enough data on a Monday morning to make the car better by the next race. And for Cadillac, that's where we are. Do not chase miracles, chase proof. That's what we're doing going into Spa. And there you have it, folks. That is your Belgian Spa-Francorchamps Grand Prix preview. Join us next week where we will review all the events that occur at the Belgian Grand Prix. See you then.